Very good evening. Our respected Principal Sir, Dr. Apurva Kumar Bandhopadhyay, our IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Mitali Gangopadhyay, respected Speaker, Professor Binoy Choube, Department of Botany, Calcutta University, Dr. Shuman Chakraborty, HOD, Department of Anthropology, Mirani Datta Mahavidyapith, all other distinguished viewers, colleagues, friends, and most importantly, all our dear students. I cordially welcome you all in the online special lecture program, Virus as a Potential Tool for Antiviral Research. As the title suggests, virus is now well known to all over the world, irrespective of socioeconomic status. At present time, being clinically marked corona positive is unbelievably the most negative things to one's life. The COVID-19 pandemic is not only shattering health crisis, but also intensely challenged the scientific understanding of virology. Discovery of antiviral drugs has always been an opportunistic endeavor. Small molecules in general and nucleoside analogues in particular have led investigators to discover uncharacterized viral gene products that could be exploited for the purpose of antiviral chemotherapy. This all will be thoroughly discussed by our respected speaker. But before that, I request our principal sir to deliver his inaugural speech. Sir, over to you now.
Okay. Good evening everybody. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the online special lecture program on virus as a therapeutic tool for antiviral research. The lecture has been jointly organized by the Departments of Botany and Microbiology in association with the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith. We feel immensely grateful to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Binoy Choube, Professor, Center for Advanced Studies, Department of Botany, University of Calcutta. Professor Choube has been highly consistent in enhancing his specialization in microbiology and virology. And this has been his specialization by doing commendable research works in national as well as in international institutes of remarkable repute. Today, Dr. Choube will illustrate why and how the researchers step up not only to eradicate viral diseases, but also use the same virus as tools to develop several therapeutic applications. In this lecture program, we feel glad to welcome the learned participants, most of whom are the faculty, scholars, and students from different institutes of higher education. And I am sure that they will be extremely benefited from the invaluable delivery of Professor Choube and realize some of the scientific milestones in antiviral research. At the end, I remain thankful to our dedicated teachers in the departments of botany and microbiology and to the members of IQAC for organizing this important online special lecture program at the backdrop of the ongoing threat of COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, I wish grand success of this lecture program and welcome you all once again. Thank you. Thank you.
Unmute, kindly unmute.
Thank you, sir. Now I request our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Mitali Gangopadhyay, to tell something about the seminar.
Thank you so much, Orpita. A hearty welcome to all of you, especially our esteemed speaker, Professor Choube, and to all the participants who have joined us for this lecture program tonight. As you all know, like the webinars are the watchword of today's COVID-19 world. So we are actually having a number of webinars, a series of webinars all around the academic institutions, which are mostly focusing on the impact of COVID-19 on the culture, the society, the psychology, health, of course, and maybe even literature. So this is, a little, today what we are taking actually is a little different approach, I must say. And it was really a pleasure when Dr. Arindam Mukherjee, and who is the convener of the program, as well as the two secretaries, joint secretaries, Dr. Orpita Bala and Dr. Anirban Mondal, they approached the IQSE to be one of their joint organizers in this lecture program. It was a pleasure because this is where we are trying to do something different. Like instead of focusing on a series of speakers, which you usually have in webinars, here we are concentrating on a singular speaker so that we can intensely focus on what he is saying. And we don't intend to, diversify, neither do we want to diffuse our point of attention. I was actually amazed to know the topic of the lecture, because so far we have been talking about, as I said, the impact of the virus on something else. But this is where we are talking about the virus in itself, how the virus itself can be an agent to which can help in antiviral research. So a very different kind of a topic, and I'm sure this is something which my colleagues would be immediately able to relate. With our principal sir, we often have a debate, especially those who belong to humanities. Our principal sir's subject is physics, and those of us who belong to humanities, my subject is English literature. Sir keeps on saying that there is a fundamental difference in the approaches of the two disciplines. Whereas literature or humanities would go for an interpretive approach, science would usually go for something that is factual, which is data-based. And sir would always say, this is more scientific. So I'm sure, sir, and I do happily agree that the topic that we are going to which Professor Chobe is going to talk to us about, his talk, the topic that he has chosen is certainly a very, very different topic from what we have been hearing all around in the different institutions regarding the COVID-19 effect, the pandemic. Because this is actually talking about, as I said, the virus itself. I know very little of it, and I'm really, really waiting to hear more about it. And I'm sure all the participants who have joined us across the world, across the globe, would be very, very enthusiastic to refresh their own ideas and to add on to their new ideas, to their old ideas, and learn something very constructive. So once again, a very hearty welcome. And again, a very good evening to all of you. We started a little late, but I'm sure we are going to have a tremendously engaging lecture program today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mitali Di. Now I request Dr. Anirban Mondal, Joint Organizing Secretary of the program, to introduce our respected speaker.
Unmute, unmute. Unmute. Anirban, unmute. Unmute your mic. Anirban, unmute your mic, please.
Suman, can Anirban follow your instruction? I don't know whether he can follow your.
Anirban, unmute your mic, please. It is not audible. He has unstable internet connection. That is why.
So let us switch over to our honorable speaker only.
Can Arindam
Okay.
kindly introduce the
Yes.
speaker or Orpita?
Yes.
Orpita.
Okay.
Just a moment.
Sir, Professor.
I'll let me do my
Okay, sir. Okay.
You have wasted a lot of time actually in the initial connection, so don't mind.
Okay, fine,
Okay.
fine. You can proceed.
I'm working here.
Peter can also introduce, please.
Yes, sir.
Please,
Yes, sir.
Please.
Sir, please, sir, 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Professor Binay Choube, sir, a faculty of Department of Botany, University of Calcutta, is currently working in a Department of Botany. He has served for more than 28 years as a faculty at different universities in India, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and University of Calcutta. Among the international assignments, he worked up as postdoctoral fellow and research technique supervisor, Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology at the University of Medicine and Dentistry, New York. He also worked as an assistant professor, European Union Program for Health, Department of Recombinant Vaccines and Virus Molecular Biology. Intercollegiate Faculty of Biotechnology, University of Gangnax and Medicinal University of Gangnax. He has successfully completed several research projects funded by national funding agencies. His laboratory focuses on the both basic and translation research on virology agencies. Sir, now please deliver your lecture. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can I share this screen?
Yeah. Yes, you can share it.
Is it visible? I hope so. Am I audible first of all? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Okay. So, good evening, everybody. And first of all, extremely sorry for this initial hiccup during the connection part. And I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the organizers for inviting me for this talk, particularly at this moment when we are all getting lazy day by day. But I'm really happy that I have been called for this. And as you can see, the topic of my presentation is virus as a therapeutic tool for antiviral research. I could have named it as a virus as a therapeutic tool against the virus, but I have kept it as a therapeutic tool for antiviral research because I'm focusing mainly on the academic part and the research part. Okay. So first of all, let me introduce my topic, the title part. What is virus-mediated therapy? Practically, we are using a virus against another virus. So to kill another virus. Okay. So, but and I have kept dots that I will explain later on. So what does this mean actually? Does a virus kill another virus? The answer is actually no. It doesn't say. So then how are we going to use it? The question is that if you are going to use a virus against a virus, then it is exactly not the virus, but we are actually using the virus to express certain genes, express certain proteins, which will be actually killing another virus. Okay. So with that concept, we are using the virus against the virus, and the core concept, the core principle behind this is the gene suppression. It's the first part of my lecture, and then there are two more parts. We need to understand these three parts over here. One is what is the principle of this application. The second is what is the therapeutic virus. That means that particular virus which we are going to use as a therapeutic tool, and then the target virus or the pathogen virus. Now, when we use any therapeutic any drug, usually it's a dead kind of stuff. Like if you take a medicine, it's just a compound. If you take a vaccine, it will trigger something in the body, some immune response. But in case of a virus, it's a live system. You take a live virus and you introduce body in this cell, and so that is why it is very different from other systems. In this case, you need to understand the virus first. Okay, understanding of both the viruses. Usually, when you are working with one virus, but here we are going to handle two viruses together. One is the vector or the therapeutic virus. The other one is the virus which are actually going to kill. Okay. So let me start with the first part, which is what is the principle of the application. This is gene therapy basically. So what is gene therapy? What happens? So sometimes somebody is having a defective gene, a defective protein, and because of that, there is certain problems. So what is done actually, theoretically, if you are able to introduce that particular gene into the body, of normal gene into the body, and then that gene will express itself and deliver the normal protein, functional protein, and because of that, the person will be benefited. Okay, so this is the core concept of gene therapy. So if I define it, it will be like introduction of genetic material into cells to compensate for abnormal genes or to make a beneficial protein. Okay, it can be given to a somatic cell, which is called somatic gene therapy, where you can put it in any somatic cell, but it won't be transferred to the next generation. Okay, there is another one which is called germline gene therapy, where you transfer it to a cell that will produce the egg or the sperm, and it will be ultimately transferred to the next generation. And to explain my point, I have put a very simple picture over here. If you look here, can you see the cursor? Anybody can respond. The cursor is visible here. I'm moving it. Is it green? Am I audible?
Yes, yes. No problem.
Hello.
Sometimes your voice quality is not good. That's
Oh my God.
okay.
You are audible.
I will go very slow then. I will go very slow.
No problem. Your cursor is visible.
Okay. So if you look at this piece of DNA, there is a small green particle. Okay. So suppose this is a gene of choice, or so this gene is defective, or this protein is defective in a host. So we take this gene from some wild type or somewhere. We put it in a vector. It can be virus, it can be non-virus, whatever. And then this is the virus, and now this is the virus which is carrying this green gene now. Now we transfer it into the host, and there it will express. So if it expresses, it will give you the functional protein. Okay. So this is the core concept of gene therapy. This I have just explained to you. Now I switch over to another topic, another aspect of this: how to release this gene into the system, how to deliver it, because that is more difficult, more challenging actually. Because when you are trying to deliver a gene, you have to deliver it through some kind of support, some kind of carrier or a molecular carrier, or called a vector. And the vector has got so many points to fulfill actually, and that makes it a very complicated process. Like see, it has to be very specific. It can carry one or more than one gene of the size which is necessary for the clinical application. It cannot be recognized by the immune system, and then it can be purified and produced and purified in large quantities in a very high titer, so that it can be, at the time of application, it can be used. The vector cannot induce allergic reactions or inflammatory response. It should increase the normal function, correct the deficiencies, or inhibit the deleterious activity. Okay. Apart from this, it should be safe, not only for the patient but also for the environment and for the professionals who are manipulating it. In the time of COVID, you can understand that people who are infected with COVID, they are of course suffering. but people who are handling COVID, they're also facing the hazard of this virus. So it should be safe to the environment as well as to others also. And at the end, I have mentioned that the vector should be capable to express the gene in general for the patient's entire lifestyle. It means that for the entire duration of the life of the patient, the protein should express itself. It should be present in the system. Okay. So now, what are the methods how to deliver the gene? There are viral vectors, there are non-viral vectors. And as I've shown you, so many conditions are there. So none of these methods, none of the vectors are actually, you can say, the absolutely perfect one. Some of them have some good points, some of them are not having not so good points. Okay, so viral vectors are good in their transcription efficiency. They have organ-specific delivery options are there. They are their plus points. Whereas non-viral methods, they have better safety. Safety is there. They are cost-effective also. Viral vectors have their disadvantages also. They can trigger any immunogenicity. The production cost is very high and technical also. And they have low packaging capacity. Low packaging capacity means not too big DNAs can be packaged in a virus. Whereas non-viral methods, their disadvantages are like they have low transcription efficiency. That means very low, very poor transfer of genes, very poor cellular uptake is there, and poor targeted delivery is there. That means it's very difficult to make an organ-specific delivery. If you want to deliver something to the liver, it will be very difficult actually if you put it into the mouth actually. Okay. Now, I will first discuss with you the non-viral methods. In case of non-viral methods, we have inorganic particles, synthetic or natural biodegradable particles, and physical methods. Okay, let me tell you one thing in the beginning, that the basic principle of both inorganic and natural biodegradable particles is simple, that DNA will make a complex with a given support system, and that support will take the whole thing inside the cell. Inside the cell, it will be either solubilized, it will be modified, but depending on its chemistry, then the DNA will be released over there inside. Okay, so inside in the inorganic method, we have like a calcium phosphate method, silica-based, gold, magnetic beads, and the DNA will be complexing with them, and they can be delivered. We have polymer-based also. There are polyester polymers, and then chitosan are there, dendrimers are there, then cationic lipids, liposomes are there, cationic emulsions. There are many methods are there now. All these are now marketed by different companies. We often use them in our lab, and we like calcium phosphate method. We use this cationic liposomes also, polyl-lysine also. But these are all very costly and very toxic systems for delivery. Okay. In addition to that, we have physical methods for delivery of genes. These are needle injections, ballistics. All these are physical methods. The principle behind them is that you are using the DNA and pushing them directly into the cell using some kind of approach. Okay, it can be a needle, it can be ballistic, it's electroporation, sonoporation, where the DNA is in a small micro bubble that will enter the cell, then it will begin bursting out and the DNA will be released. And then photoporation, magnetoprotection, where you are using a magnet kind of stuff. So all these are methods. And however, they face different challenges also, like they have the challenge of extracellular stability, internalization, intracellular trafficking, nuclear entry, toxicity to the cell due to the compound which is going to be used, as well as the methods which you are using, like suppose you are going for electroporation or say ballistic injection, or these methods are very, very physically damaging to the cell actually. So in my experience, I have seen that if I am doing electroporation in a cell, then almost 90% cells die over there. Only 10% cells survive. So this is the way it works. But of course, effective methods are there. These are effective methods. The only problem is that all these methods are mainly for research-based purposes. If you want to use them in a patient system and on a bedside system, it is really challenging so far. And although some gene delivery have been tried with the nanoparticle-based system and some liposomes also, but still not a very effective system. The another one is the viral-based vector, where you are using actually a virus. In almost 100 years of viral biology, we have been able to only see 5 viruses which have been actually utilized, and it's more than 40 years of gene therapy concept. The concept of gene therapy is almost 40 years old now, and still there are only 5 viruses which have been actually tried, utilized for gene delivery. First is retrovirus, then lentiviruses, adenovirus, adeno-associated virus, and herpes simplex virus. Okay. These first two are RNA viruses, then this is DNA viruses, and this is also rubber DNA. All of them have some gene carrying capacity, like retro can and lentiviruses can take up to 8 to 10. This can take, adeno can take more than 8. Adeno-associated can take 5 kb, up to 5 kb, and herpes simplex virus can take more than 30 kb. Now see, if you look at this row, all of them have certain advantages and all of them have certain disadvantages, but none of them is having, you can say, the absolute vector. Okay, so first you can integrate. Integrate means it will be effective for a long time. Adenovirus has shown demonstrable efficacy. They have good efficacy. Adeno-associated doesn't show any clinical disease so far, and they can efficient multiple cell types. The herpes simplex virus, that means they have a broader spectrum. Whereas all of them have certain defects also. The integration of lentivirus and the retrovirus into the genome becomes a negative point also, because it can cause some insertional mutagenesis, and adenoviruses can cause some immune response, and adeno-associated virus also can cause some immune response. And lack of a long-term expression is a problem in the herpes simplex virus. So what I'm trying to tell you is that different viral vectors are used, and all the viral vectors are having some points, some plus and some not so good points with them. So that is why when you go for a gene delivery or gene therapy process, we have to decide case to case basis. Okay. So now I come to the next point, that is the therapeutic virus. Okay, so I just explained to you the principle of application of gene therapy, and now I'm going to the therapeutic virus, the vector. The vector which we use in our lab is the retrovirus vector for the gene delivery. And before, as I told you, it's a virus is a living system. So you need to be like very precise with the knowledge of the delivery vector as well as the target vector. So you have to understand two viruses together. So therapeutic virus, here we are using, as I told you, retrovirus. It's a reverse transcription. It's a major event in your life cycle. There are many students in the group, so I must remind them that in your textbooks you might have seen a central dogma of life. You might be seeing that from your +2 level or might be high school level. That is central dogma of life, where you see there is a DNA to RNA to protein, and then there is RNA to DNA, and with a small word reverse transcriptase. Okay, so if you go to the books of cell biology, the molecular biology, which are say written before 70s, you will not see that loop. You will see only DNA to RNA to protein. It was in 71, 72 when the reverse transcriptase was first discovered, and then people realized for the first time that the RNA-based DNA synthesis is also possible, and then the reverse transcription transcriptase was discovered that way. And this reverse discovery of this enzyme got 2 Nobel Prizes for David Baltimore and Howard Clement. Interestingly, both the papers came in the same issue of Nature, back to back. 2 papers came, both of them mentioning the same stuff, and both of them got the Nobel Prize for this discovery, and it changed the whole scenario. Okay, so another property of this virus is that these are icosahedral. It developed virion, about 100 nanometer in diameter. They are single-stranded. RNA genome of up to 7 to 10 kb. There are 2 identical genomes. You can say they are diploid, like stuff, and they cause all kind of different AIDS, leukemia, cancer, all those stuff. Okay, and they have some unique facts also, which I just wanted to share with you. They are the only RNA viruses whose genome is produced by cellular transcriptional machinery. What does it mean actually? When the retrovirus enters the cell, it undergoes reverse transcription. That means it uses the RNA as a template and makes the DNA. And that DNA goes inside the chromosome, gets integrated, and becomes a part of the chromosome. And after that, it is recognized as a target, as a host gene and host DNA, and it makes its own RNA, and just like any human host gene expression. Whereas other RNA viruses, like say COVID, if you talk about SARS-CoV, which is now very hot, you can say that when the COVID enters the cell, it doesn't undergo any reverse transcription or any stuff. First of all, it makes its own polyprotein, or the RDRP, or the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. It just makes one protein in the beginning. Just makes one protein, and it's a multi-domain complex, so it will break up into another proteins also. And then other proteins are synthesized, because that protein, that is RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, which is coming, the gene for that is coming on the viral genome, that will be synthesized, and that protein will work on the replication of the virus. Okay, so that is how it is different. There is no DNA, nothing. In this case, the viral genome is synthesized by the host RNA polymerase too. And they are the only viruses whose genome require a specific cellular RNA for the replication. Okay, and they are the only sense RNA virus whose genome does not serve directly as mRNA immediately after infection. As I told you for COVID, COVID goes inside and makes a polyprotein first. And that also not complete genome, a part of this genome is synthesized first, means the translated first. Here in this case, it doesn't go that way. Okay. So this is just in brief the retroviral genome organization. They have 3 proteins which are constant in all of them: Gap, Pol, and envelope, which are inserted here. And this is called a simple retrovirus, and they have complex retroviruses also, where you may have more than one protein, like which are called accessory proteins, and like BPR, WAVE, BPO, small different viruses have different proteins. So this genome organization you have to remember. And now I come to just in brief explain you the HIV life cycle, because this life cycle you have to understand in order to go for the therapy part. So what happens when the virus sits on the receptor, CD4 receptors, and then along with the co-receptors, this virus is slowly fusing with the. I'm not mentioning all the finer virology details here, the proteins and other stuff, because it will become a virology class. I have to move on to the actual stuff. So that's why. So what happens here? The virus sits on the surface, and then you can see that it is the viral membrane and the cell membrane fuse, and the content inside the virus is slowly released inside the cell. The beauty is that many of you might have seen the picture of bacteriophage. The bacteriophage sits on the cell and injects its DNA inside the cell, and the rest of the material is left outside the cell. It's not like that. The viral membrane is fused with the cell membrane. That means nothing is vested outside. Okay. So cell, and inside the cell cytoplasm, it is still in the capsid. Inside the capsid only, the reverse transcription starts, and the double-stranded DNA is formed here, and that DNA will enter the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, it will cut the DNA chromosome, and then it will integrate this double-stranded DNA over here, and then it will seal it. And that is how the HIV has become is now sitting in your chromosome forever. And so far, whatever drugs we have, none of them target to remove this proviral DNA from here. Okay, and from here, once it is integrated, it is now our cellular machinery cannot differentiate between the virus and the chromosomal DNA. So it behaves like a normal host chromosome or human chromosome, you can say, or human DNA. and just with the help of RNA polymerase II, it synthesizes the RNA, and then it undergoes for translation, and then it will go out of the cell by budding. Okay, so this is just in brief HIV biology. You have to remember this thing, because when I will apply this thing in the therapeutic part, then I will extract the information from here. So now I am coming to the third part, that is the target. Now we know gene therapy. Now we know the therapeutic virus. We have understood a little bit of biology of that. Now I'm coming to my target virus. My target virus here is the hepatitis C virus. So we want to now apply this approach of antiviral approach of gene therapy on hepatitis C virus. So let us have a brief idea about the hepatitis C virus. What is that? It's a global health problem, and it causes chronic hepatitis, liver cirrhosis, liver cancer. It's a small, persistent, single-stranded RNA virus. Okay, and it's a sole member of Hepativirus genus within the family Clavibilidae. It's transmitted through blood and sexual contact and other contaminated blood. Okay. It is responsible for about 50 to 76% of all liver cancer cases and 2/3 of all liver transplants globally. 80% of new infections develop into chronic infection. Another fact is that globally about 71 million people are currently infected with hepatitis C virus, and worldwide about 35 million people are infected with HIV. 10 million people out of them are co-infected with hepatitis C virus. Okay, so in India, about 12 million people may be chronically infected, because in India the figures are usually not so correct. I will tell you. These are some of the problems with them. And this is the structure of the virus. Still date, we do not have the exact structure of the virus. This virus was discovered way back in 1989. Until 2005 or 6, we were not able to culture this virus in the lab. Okay, so it was very challenging to culture this virus. It came in 2005 only, when people had a structure of the virus, that also from the cell culture, not the real virus. And it's an icosahedral nucleocapsid. They can infect only the chimpanzees, apart from humans. So this is a big problem with them. And so if you look at the genome organization of this virus, as I told you, it's RNA virus. It has a 5' non-translated region and a 3' non-translated region. It has certain structural genes, certain non-structural genes, and it makes the open reading. It's a single open reading frame, and it makes about 3,000 amino acid precursor proteins, and they're all anchored on the ER. You can see this. It is inside the cell, and it is the ER lumen, and all the proteins are synthesized on the membrane itself. And after that, they are chopped off by the viral proteases and some cellular proteases also. And that is how the individual proteins of the virus come out, and the virus is then full virus is then assembled and it is released out of the cell. So this is just in brief the city biology part. And for the treatment, we have certain drugs, but believe me, most of the drugs are very costly and very toxic so far. Okay, sorry. And some of the drugs were so costly that even within 2 to 3 years of their introduction, they were withdrawn actually because of their toxicity. And today we have drugs against viral NS5A, NS3A. These are the protease inhibitors. Then we have NS5A inhibitors, polymerase inhibitors are there. They are being used. Still, they are very costly and very, very toxic. Okay. So still we are looking for new drugs and better approaches for treating hepatitis. So what are the problems? The efficacy of the drugs, as I told you, is very low. They are very costly and cost a big fortune actually, I can tell you. And that is why they are not available to a majority of STD patients. And one thing which is very critical is that most effective against specific genotypes. Hepatitis has got 7 genotypes, and these drugs are not pangenomic. That means they are not active against all the genotypes. Some of they are effective against some of the genotypes and not effective against some of them. Okay. And you have seen that it is an RNA-based, it's RNA virus. There is no DNA step in the middle. RNA enters the cell. It makes a negative strand RNA also. So the negative strand RNA becomes a template for the positive strand RNA. So that it goes on. And it is all done by the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Now that's a very error-prone enzyme. And that's an error-prone enzyme. Because of that, there is emergence of drug resistance strain is inevitable. So drug resistance will come out no matter what. Okay. And so far there is no vaccine available for it. Okay. So this is the background of the hepatitis part. And present approaches, people are using different approaches have been used. And today I'm going to talk to you about siRNA. siRNA based approach we are going to use. And now I will tell you what is siRNA. And then I will tell you how we are going to apply this siRNA into the gene therapy part. Most of you might be knowing siRNA, but I'm just giving a brief of this siRNA part. siRNA is natural pathway of gene regulation in the body. And in the nucleus, they have certain microRNA. There are certain segments which synthesize microRNA. They do not make any gene products, but they make just hair loop structures. It can be, here it is simplified. You can have multiple hair loop stem loop structures over there. And then it is, this RNA is processed by DROSA, a group of enzymes called DROSA that cuts it into small hairful loops. And this stem loop shRNA is now formed from this one. So this one is processed into this one. And now this RNA will come out of the cell, of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. And there it will be now acted upon by dicer. The dicer will make it into small dices. And so like it will make a small duplex RNA. The loop is now gone. And now it will be acted upon by RISC, RNA-induced silencing complex. That enzyme will take over the RNA and it will target the target mRNA. Okay, it will go to the mRNA, target mRNA. It will bind with that and it will degrade that mRNA in a sequence-specific manner. Okay, so this is the core concept of RNAi. We can introduce the RNAi at this level also in the cell and we can see the pathway. We can introduce the RNAi at this level also, we can see the pathway. We can introduce them. It's basically a natural phenomenon which we can utilize to our benefit. Now, the twist is here, we are using RNAi using the gene therapy backbone. Okay. And why the RNAi? Because this is HCV RNA is highly susceptible to RNAi. In HCV life cycle, there is only RNA, there is no DNA intermediate. So RNA and everything is in the cytoplasm. You are not going into the genome. You are not touching the genomic configuration of the patient. A genotype specific drugs can be made because it's a simple approach. So if the virus changes, you can change the sequence of the RNA also. It's a simple, straightforward, cost-effective approach. Your cellular factors involved in your HCV life cycles can be selected for RNAi-based therapy without causing mutation. Now, this is something which is very, very different. Because we studied in our colleges that we should use a drug which should not affect the host cell factors. But here we can target the host cell factors also. I will tell you how later on. And then you can, this delivery can be made through a cell lentiviral vector and they can integrate into the non-dividing cell and the lasting RNA effect can be achieved. Okay. So how we are, what we are going to do now? We are going to design our siRNA and those siRNA will be designed and integrated into a lentiviral backbone. Okay. Into the lentiviral backbone, they will be introduced. And from there, instead of expressing a gene, that lentiviral gene delivery system will actually express the miRNA. Okay, and that miRNA will be processed inside the cell and target the gene. Okay, so this concept we started. So first and foremost thing was production of the HCV in the cell culture system. And for this, we have a linearized process. As I told you, we do not have a HCV cell culture system. A wild type cell culture system we do not have so far globally. and nobody is using that. We are still using the GFL J6 and GFS plasmids, which is actually a primary clone, where this part is the pink one is from J6 string, and this is from JFS string, and they have been fused and ligated, and this is somehow cell culture adapted. Okay. So in the lab, what we do, we linearize this plasmid, we make a run of transcript from there. There's CD whole length genome, about 9.7 kb RNA synthesized in the lab, and that RNA is then transfected into the HUS 7.5 cell, is a human hepatoma cell line, and then from there, the virus is harvested, and that virus is now then checked by PCR, by RT-PCR or by real-time PCR for this saturation, and then that is used to infect the cell. Okay, so this is just in brief how we make the virus. And as I told you, we designed several siRNAs, and those siRNAs were checked in vitro, and like we have checked a lot of antigen. All these are host cell factors. At the end, we have NS5, and we have used 25, 50, 100 nanomolar of the RNAi in the cell lines, and we have seen 85%, 94%, or 96% down regulation, somewhere 45 to 73, somewhere the regulation and down regulation not so good, somewhere it is good, somewhere it is not so good. Because RNA, when we design, we are designing it by using some kind of algorithm, some kind of software tool, and you have to understand one thing: the RNAi activity is not like PCR. When we synthesize a primer for a PCR, there also we use a software or some kind of algorithm, and we synthesize the primer, and we put everything in a tube, and we heat it about 94 degrees. So everything is opened up over there. Okay, so that's actually a dead system. And here it is, it's a live system. This siRNA will go inside the system, inside the cell. It will recruit the RNA complex, RISC complex, sorry. It will recruit the RISC complex, that's a multi-protein complex, and the whole thing will then go search for the RNA, cognate sequence of RNA it will search, and then it will cut it. Now the problem is that no matter how good RNA you design, if you target that segment of your RNA, because the RNA is in its native form, it is synthesizing the protein, it may be compressed to the ribosome or the protein synthesis complex, so it may not be available for the RISC complex. So there is always a steric hindrance, or there is always a competition between the RNAi complex and the natural RNA. So that is why algorithms are not, you cannot say that this is the best algorithm or this is the best way of designing it. Okay, so I've shown you in a tabular format, and I now will show you the real data where inhibition of SCB by down regulating the cellular and viral. Here we have down regulated certain viral genes and the cellular gene also, and seen that how the gene silencing will affect the viral replication. Okay, and viral replication we are measuring by RT-PCR of viral NS5. Okay, if you look here in this section, this is a low autoantigen, this is the viral host protein, and if it is downregulated, in response to that downregulation, there is small downregulation of NS5B also. If you look here in HVAP, this is another protein, but here NS5B is not that much regulated, but not that much downregulated. PSM is 7. Here, if we downregulate it, there's a little bit of downregulation you can see over here. Here, NS5B down. This is viral protein. So now you can see that when we are downregulating the host protein, the virus is going down little bit. Okay. After this, we thought that can we go for a multiple gene silence, because these were all individual gene silences. So we started downregulating multiple genes at a time. So here we have used LAW plus NS5B. So what we are basically using, we are actually taking the hepatomas HUS 7.5 cells, and we are infecting them with the virus. And after the infection, we are treating them with the RNA. Okay, and then we are seeing that what is the effect. So in this case, you can see that if LAW and NS5B are downregulated here, and LAW as well, then the effect is much more here in this case. This is the control 100%, and this is the virus NS5B level. So if you look at this, virus NS5B is a viral RDRP or RNA-dependent RNA polymerase protein gene. So if you're downregulating these two genes together, there is this much of almost 90% downregulation. If here also almost 80% downregulation is here. So we can say that when we are using multiple siRNAs at a time, or more than one siRNA at a time, then the effect is much more pronounced on the inhibition of the virus. Okay. And the same thing I'm showing you here by Western as well as by confocal. I will skip this slide. This is from the data, but only on the different representation here. You can see here that here NS5B is here, and when we are downregulating the LAW here, and NS5B is downregulated, and here in this case, both of them are downregulated. LAW plus NS5B, almost negligible siRNA NS virus is visible over here. You can see over here also in the graphical part. Okay, and that is same thing with the confocal also. You can see almost no green spot over here in this case, which is actually the NS5B. So the question is now that one thing is established, that if you downregulate the host gene, it inhibits the viral replication first. And now the question is, if you are going to use it for a therapeutic purpose, then of course not one single application will not be needed. We need regular application. So we now started working on that. And if you look at this thing, and in this result, we have given a single dose of siRNA, and after that we have checked the level of virus after every 3 days. Okay, and the last one you can see here, the control, reagent control, scramble siRNA, LAW siRNA, NS5B, then this is the double siRNA. Okay, if you look at this thing, particularly here, that 3 days, 6 days, 9, 12, and 15 days in all of them. So after 15 days, almost after 12 days, I will say they recovered the whole RNA effect was gone. Okay, that means once, because the cell is dividing, when the cell is dividing, then the RNA titer is getting low, and ultimately the effect is gone. After almost 9 days onwards, the effect is almost gone. So now we decided to give the siRNA after every 3 days. Okay. In this experiment, if you see similar results, but the graph is entirely changed here. This is the densitometry of this result here. So I will explain here. It will be much easier for people to understand. See, after 3 days, half of the cells were taken, and in half of the cells, we plated and we put the siRNA again after 6 days, 9 days, 12 days. We did the same thing. Okay, and if you look here, after 12 days, after 6 days only, almost negligible virus level is here. And here also in the supernatant is what is the virus which is coming out of the cell. There also after 12 days and 15 days, there is nothing in our detection system. I will go to the previous slide once again, just to remind you. Look at this one. Here they are going up because the virus is coming back, because the RNA effect is gone, because RNA was given only once, and for next 15 days there was no RNA was given, and the RNA effect was ultimately diluted. Here we kept on giving the RNAi, we kept on treating the cells every 3 days with the RNAi, and we can see the effect here that the RNAi works. So it means that the RNAi has to be present in the system all the time. Now that's a big challenge. How to make it present in the system? And now for that you have to devise some bigger and better approach, because these are all cell line-based experiments only. So what we did at that time, we did a very complex cloning. And in this, Dr. Aniruddha Mandal was very helpful. Actually, it was part of his PhD program. So you can see that we cloned 2 short hairpin RNA. Okay, we synthesized short hairpin RNA and we cloned them individually against 2 different promoters. One was U6 and the other one was H1. Okay, so under H1 we have NS5B. Under U6 we have LAW2 antigen, and then this is one, and then there are 2 more vectors where they are single, where there are single short hairpins. In this one only single, this one is double, this one is also single because this one is mutated here. Okay, so now let us see. So now what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to clone 2 short hairpins under 2 specific promoters. Okay, and clone them and express them. And this was critical in the sense that now we are going into totally live system. Earlier, the RNAi which was synthesized, which we had used, they are synthesized by companies. Now, here it will be synthesized inside the cell itself. So that is more challenging because the processing of the short hairpin is now not in our hands. It is totally inside the cell. So what we have done here now so far, we have cloned it in a actually retroviral backbone. Okay, the vector we have used is a retroviral vector. So now what is the concept starting from here? We go back to the gene therapy slide once again. So I have kept one gene therapy slide here again once, just for the reminder. You can see there is a lentiviral backbone here. Okay, and that there is a red one, there's a reporter gene. So that reporter gene, when it enters the cell, other viral genes like envelope, GAG, POL, they are expressed from other vectors. Okay, so what I'm doing actually, I have dissected my virus. I've totally broken my virus, the therapeutic virus, here the lentivirus, into 4 parts. One is the envelope, GAG, POL, and then the backbone, the genomic. The backbone means the part which will be actually packaged, and that part contains the foreign gene or the gene which is to be delivered. Okay, and all of them are co-transcripted in a cell, in a packaging cell line. Okay, and they are to be on the safer side. The envelope gene here it is mentioned, but usually we remove the envelope gene, and instead of HIV envelope gene, we put VSBG envelope gene. That's another virus, this killer stomatitis virus. Okay, so that means when the virus will come out, the surface of the virus will be actually will be like a VSBG virus. Inside will be actually the HIV. So it is now a totally genetically engineered virus. This is what we have made now. So now this is the engineered virus. Now when it enters the cell, so when the packaging is taking place, only this part will be packaged, and the genes for envelope, GAG, POL will not be packaged. Okay. So now in the next cycle, it can enter the cell, it can infect the cell, it can replicate, it can express itself, but it will not make new virus. Because for making the new virus, say GAG, POL, all these things are not there. Okay, the genes for them are not there. So new virus will not come out. So that is why it is a pseudovirus or single cycle virus, and this is used for research purposes. Okay. So in our system, what we have done, we have used 4 viruses here, 4 vectors here. The first one is the PHIV and EGFP. So here, this part is our cloning site, and here we have a EGFP as a reporter system. Then we have the GAG-POL, REV, and the VSBG. What we do here, we take all of them and put them in a packaging cell line, which is a C290 cell here. And then after, by using the calcium phosphate method of transduction, and after that, the 3 days after 48 hours or 72 hours, the virus will come out. And then from there, we collect the virus. Now we have got a virus with us. And that is, what is that virus? That virus is actually HIV virus, or you can say pseudo HIV virus. And that virus is actually carrying a gene for short hairpin expression. It is carrying a gene expression system inside it, but it is not actually giving any gene product. The product is actually short hairpin. Okay. So when we use that virus, this is just to check the efficiency of this virus, that there are green indicates that the virus is here. So we move on from here. So once I got the virus, now we take the HCV infected cells and infect them with the pseudovirus. Now here is virus therapeutics coming into picture. So we have made a virus which is having a gene inside that. That gene synthesis will when it will express, it will make a short hairpin. The RNA will become immediately a short hairpin. That is how we have designed it. So once it becomes a short hairpin, immediately the RNA pathway will come into picture. That is the inherent part of the cellular system. And then it will process that RNA following the microRNA pathway. And then the DROSA, DISA, all those things will work on that. And then the RNAi will come into picture, and you will have a RNAi, and that will target the target gene. Okay. So what we have done here, we have taken the HUS 7.5 cell, infected that with the hepatitis C virus. So HCV infected cell now infected with lentivirus. And what is the effect? And the lentivirus will express short hairpin. Now look at this. It's a one-time infection, 3 days, 6 days, 9 days, 12 days, 15 days. We have consistent inhibition. Okay. And the supernatant also, it is constantly inhibited. That means when we are able to deliver the short hairpin through a lentiviral vector. That means the lentiviral vectors which we have synthesized, which are designed here, is able to kill the hepatitis C virus. Okay. So we are using a retrovirus to kill a flavivirus here. Same thing with the Western blot. You can see that here also, in this part, you can see that 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 days the viral level is down. Okay. Now after this, there is another experiment which we did, that was prophylactic activity. Can we treat this person with this siRNA, with this lentivirus before infection? Okay. So as a prophylactic, so we are treating the cells with this pseudovirus so that the cellular protein level of these viruses are coming down, already down. And now I'm infecting the cell. So what is the effect? If you look here, here also, this viral level is down, and here the infection with the hepatitis was done after the infection with the lentivirus. Okay, still we can see still effective, and here also this is the version of the same result. So what does it indicate? That so that means we have designed a lentiviral vector which can express short hairpin RNA. It was a trial, preliminary study, so we have done only 2 proteins, and when they are downregulated, the virus is getting downregulated, and the biggest challenge was to design the vector itself. So the designing of the vector was successful, and because it was effective in downregulating the target virus. So with this, I will conclude. This siRNA-mediated silencing of genome and the host cell package is an attractive approach to ensure effective antiviral effect. Multiple siRNA against HCV as well as host factors are more effective because we have seen the single siRNA versus multiple siRNA. Consecutive treatment with multiple siRNA maintains prolonged antiviral activity. Lentivirus virus expressing short hairpin against lower antigen and S5B, and that it provided stable inhibition of HCV. There are future prospects also which need to be done, like organ-specific delivery of the lentiviral vectors in animal models, The toxicity studies in response to the long-term effect of siRNA delivery should be studied. And this system can be useful against RNA virus like SARS-CoV also. Because as we hear that now we have to live with the SARS-CoV for next at least 2 to 3 years, that means it's not like a short-term remedy here. So we can survive with, we can design against them also. So with these words, I would finish, and I will thank all of you for your, of course, I must acknowledge my mentors here, Dr. B.N. Pandey, who was a professor at RAPGIS, Medicine of Dentistry, and Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey. Charlie Rice, who is the person at Rockefeller, he has designed that clone, which is used by most of the SCB labs throughout the world. And Dr. Anirban Mandal, who is actually was a PhD student, who is now with you. And the data which I have shown here, particularly the cloning part and all the antiviral data, it was very hard work done by him. And it was a very, very interesting work. And of course, Department of Biotechnology, New Delhi, for the financial support of this project. And thank you very much. And I'd like to take questions from if there is any.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, there is a question that gene therapy can be used by anybody or it is age specific. Okay. So can I answer that? Yes.
Professor Chobe, yeah, can you stop the screen sharing so we can?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That gene therapy can be used by anybody, or it is age specific. First thing is that if there is any gene defect, the gene defect, it comes from childhood. If there is any defect, it is diagnosed, it is from childhood. But second thing is that if it is a single gene product, it is multiple proteins are involved in the effect. So, and that is why person to person, as I told you, as shown in one of my slides, it's totally personalized, person to person, and if it's specific, it is done. And full form of risk, somebody has asked, risk RNA use. Somebody is asking full form.
So may I ask you one question?
Sir,
Sir, gene therapy is applicable for COVID-19 or not?
I told you at the end, gene therapy, see, if you say gene therapy, if gene doesn't go into our body, I mean, it doesn't integrate it. But gene therapy based approach like the one which I discussed, like RNAi, that can be used.
Okay.
That can be.
sir, I have one question, sir. Sir, what is the drawback of retroviral mediated gene therapy?
I think I had shown that in that table.
Yes.
Every method has some bias. Their biggest drawback is that they get inserted into the genome randomly. Okay, so and once they get integrated, they become part of the system, of course. So that is one way. Of course, it is good, but that is itself is a bad thing because they can get integrated randomly. So that can cause some insertional mutagenesis. So they can trigger cancer also. They can, instead of, if you are delivering one gene, you have delivered one gene, but you have stopped another gene. It can happen.
So, how we can overcome this problem?
You have some dedicated vectors now. I mean, you can use say maybe adeno associated, but the only problem with them, because if you are using some any vector which has a specific place of integration into the chromosome, then you can, I mean, and without hampering the host, you can.
And this approach is always applicable for chronic viral disease or both acute and chronic viral disease.
See, gene therapy is for us. I tell you one thing. Gene therapy started almost
Like some viral diseases are like acute disease, within 7 days or 5 days it will get recovered, or it will get it will be recovered. But for some cases like HCV, it is like chronic disease. So this process is applicable for both the cases or just for chronic diseases only?
See, gene delivery part. What I have told here is a stable gene delivery. Okay, you can use another vector. You can use say adeno or other vectors or other say nanoparticle based genes. Okay, nanoparticle based delivery system you can use, and you can use it for a short time. Gene can be used, RNA can be used, but the vector is the crucial matter, because the vector itself is, as I told you, the method of delivery is very crucial in all of them. There is a question: what should be our criteria while designing the siRNA? Somebody has asked. See, as I told, this is why Pooja was okay. When we design a siRNA, the first thing is that we have to know the gene. Okay, and we have to have we should have some algorithm. There are no algorithms available, some tools available which help us in designing siRNA. Okay, but as I told you, even though you have the best siRNA, it may face a problem when it enters the cell. Okay, so nowadays there are softwares also which help you in giving you the 3D structure of your RNA also. So you can check the RNA structure also in vitro. In silico RNA structure you can see, and you can see that it is not so much looped, or it is not so much complex that it is easily accessible or not. These things you can keep in mind. But at the end of the day, you have to check your siRNA experimentally. There is no, I cannot tell you that this is the best way of designing a siRNA. This is the best method. No. You have to design using best possible tools. But you have to go to the cell culture, you have to put it in the cell, and there if it works, that's the best one. That is why now the best way, another way is that if you go to the companies who are selling the siRNA, they have two types of siRNA. One is just siRNA, the other one is validated siRNA. Validated siRNA, they have designed, means that they have designed the siRNA, but they have validated it. That cell culture experiment which you are supposed to do, they have done it. So they are giving you kind of a certificate that okay, it works 90%, 95% down regulation is there, and for that you have to pay $200 more, or you do it yourself in your lab. Okay. There is somebody.
One more.
Orpita, still we have 183 attendees, within which 4 are raising their hand. Is it possible to take the question from them?
Sir, is it possible?
Not so
Yes,
much.
no problem. From my side, no problem.
Okay. I just really allow first Dr. Achinto Kumar Samanto.
There is one serious one.
Yes,
Sir, one
I
more
allow.
question is there.
Dr. Achan,
Full form of
yes,
RISC.
That
Risk, I have already answered that. That is the
Oh, so okay, sorry.
Dr.
Pooja was now Dheeraj Mandal, siRNA and shRNA, short interfering RNA, and shRNA stands for short hairpin RNA. Okay. Next. Okay.
Dr. Achinto Kumar Samanto, can you speak? Dr. Achinto Kumar Samanto. So next one, Kobita De Das.
বলছে ক্যান ইউ স্পিক ডক্টর অচিন্ত কুমার সামন্ত, কি করে বলবো কথা, আবার চোখ খালি গায়ে।
No, Dr. Achinta Kumar Samanto, can you speak? Can you tell the question to Professor Chobe? You need not to open your videos. You put your question here. Because
খোলাই যায়নি।
yes, Dr. Kobita De Das.
ছেড়ে দাও ছেড়ে দাও।
Dr. Kobita De Das. Yes, Dr. Achinta Kumar Samanto, can you speak? Yes, please put your question here.
বলেছিলে করতে পারি কিন্তু কি করলে কি করো, আর খালি গায়ে সব দেখতে পাবো।
Okay.
You please stop your video and unmute yourself and then ask your question.
No, he's already unmuted,
Oh.
but he's worried about the videos, no?
Mhm.
That's why. We need not to open your videos. He can put the question. Put your question anyway. Stop it. Then Kobita De Das and Shubhojit Saha.
Why don't they
Kobita
write-
De Das and Shubhojit Saha.
It is very difficult to second
I
how
think
to
Yes.
either
Shumanda, leave it.
write their questions.
Okay. Okay, fine. So the thing is that when anybody raises his hand, please put your question only. So this is the facility as given by the Zoom, as because if you have the question, then you raise your hand, the host or organizer can give you the permission to put your question to the speaker. So this is the way we can manage our attendees too. So anyway, we are not taking now, or
There are three questions
let's
here. Okay.
yes, we can take from the question answer.
Can gene therapy used as an immune booster? Yes, it can be used as an immune booster. And why the scrambled siRNA gives different results? Scrambled siRNA different result. I didn't understand the question actually, because scrambled siRNA is a piece of siRNA which is not having any alignment in the host. Actually, it's a kind of a control, so that you can say that just to check that RNAi which you are using and the reagents which you are using, that is causing any damage to the cell or not, as a control. So usually it doesn't give any effect, and usually we see the same 100% as control. Okay, in our result at least we have seen as par with control. And the next question is, can the method be practically implemented on a wide scale to tackle the current scenario? This is something, yeah, it can be applied, but this result which I have shown you, this is just a small result, piece of result, but it is having a research of at least 30 years. Okay, so to handle a virus, it's not like just drug is coming as we see nowadays on the television. It's not like that. To use retrovirus as a vector, it is a study of almost 25 to 30 years. People have studied the virus itself. So virus-based method, I will not say, but yeah, you can use any other method for delivering the gene. Okay, because at this stage it's very difficult. And then what is this? Will this retroviral therapy method be cost-effective for practical purposes? Yeah, it can, but let me tell you, these are all personalized. Person to person decisions are taken, patient to patient the decisions are taken actually. Okay, so it's not like a regular treatment. It's not a regular treatment. Okay, and it also depends where you are getting treated, because you not only need a doctor, you also need a scientist also when these kind of things are happening, because these things a scientist will do, and doctor will also be there. Okay, So that is also because the involvement of so many people makes the things actually very costly. Okay.
Okay, we can proceed, Orpita. We just crossed 2.5 hours. We are just reaching 2.5 hours. So hopefully we'll able to question all these questions which raised, and fantastic attendees here. Still we have 175 attendees, and hopefully they're in reach.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Orpita. We'll give the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me answer
We
this last
will give
question.
the vote of thanks.
Somebody has asked if lentiviral
Yes,
vector.
yes.
Lentiviral
Yes.
vector is actually a
Hello.
retrovirus vector,
Hmm.
which is actually HIV backbone. Okay, retrovirus is the broader one. Lentia is the HIV vector. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, next. Orpita.
Next, Arindam,
Yes.
you will give the
Yes.
thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Orpita. At first, I apologize for this kind of late. Respected principal, sir, our guest speaker, IQAC coordinator, honorable participants, and others. It seems to be a great honor for me to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped us in making this program a very resounding success. First of all, I would like to give my hearty thanks to Srimati Chandrima Bhattacharya, Honorable President, Governing Body, Mrinalini Datta Mohavidyapit, for her tireless and wholehearted support in every developmental aspects of this institution. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks to our principal, Sir Dr. Apurva Bandyopadhyay, for his minute-to-minute support and guidance, for encouraging at every point of time in the organization of this great event. I would also like to mention the name of Dr. Mitali Gangopadhyay, the coordinator, IQAC Mrinalini Datta Mohavidyapit, who always gave us support from the back end. Thank you, ma'am. You have greatly contributed your effort to the success of this event. I would like to convey my extreme gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Binoy Choube, Department of Botany, University of Calcutta, for giving an excellent presentation and making this online special lecture a very meaningful and interesting one. I will always remember the name of Dr. Suman Chakraborty, HOD, Department of Anthropology, for his valuable technical support as a host of Zoom platform. I would like to give my vote of thanks to the organizing secretaries, Dr. Urpita Bala, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, and Dr. Anirban Mundal, Faculty, Department of Microbiology, for making the online special lecture a great success. I must mention the profound sense of appreciation for all the faculties, laboratory staffs, and students of the college for their necessary helps. Finally, I would like to thank all the participants for taking part in this event. You are participating from different districts and different states even of India. Thank you all once again. There are some important announcements. Dear participants, tomorrow we'll send the link for feedback form to your email address of those who are present in this online program today only. Please send the duly filled feedback form to us within 3 days. That is the 3rd July. We'll then send you the e-certificate in your email address within 7 days. That means 10th July. Dear participants, we have a science forum composed of 13 lab-based science departments to organize different scientific programs jointly. We also form a common academic platform, the Vidyayatan Sammilani, with the locally situated schools to extend scientific thoughts among the school students. In the coming months, we shall arrange many online programs on different scientific issues in national and international levels. Please be with us in these future programs. Thank you all once again. And this is the end of the program. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. So, okay, thank you, and good
Okay,
night
sure.
to all. I just
Thank you.
close the meeting. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.